I don't usually share stories online. Never have. I've always been a pretty private person, honestly. But this one has been stuck in my head for years, like a splinter under the skin that you can never quite dig out. It happened when I was 17. Just a kid, really, trying to earn some pocket money. My first real babysitting job that wasn't for a family friend or some distant aunt who trusted me implicitly. This was for strangers, and it was supposed to be easy. A quick Friday night gig. In, out, $20 richer, and then off to enjoy Halloween weekend with my friends. But what happened on Hawthorne Drive? It still keeps me up sometimes, especially when I hear knocking at night. It all started, as so many things do these days, with a Facebook post, buried deep in a local community group. You know the kind. Lost cats, garage sales, recommendations for plumbers. This one popped up one afternoon. Looking for a responsible babysitter, 6 p.m. to midnight, one child, good pay. My teenage brain immediately latched onto good pay. Halloween weekend was coming up, and my budget was, well, non-existent. I messaged the poster right away. The name was Miss Riley. Her profile picture was a little blurry, but she looked friendly enough. She texted me back quickly, saying she and her husband were going to a dinner party. They needed someone to watch their 7-year-old son, Evan. 7 years old. That sounded ideal. Not a baby, not a teenager. Old enough to be self-sufficient, young enough to still be in bed by a reasonable hour. Perfect. We texted back and forth a few times. She seemed normal, polite, concise. She even offered to pay extra if I could stay a little past midnight, just in case their dinner ran long. I remember thinking, score. This was going to be a breeze. Easy money. My mom, bless her heart, was a little hesitant about me babysitting for complete strangers, but I was 17, practically an adult, right? I convinced her it was fine. What could possibly go wrong? That Friday, my mom dropped me off around 5:45 p.m. The neighborhood was one of those newer developments, built just outside the main town. All the houses looked pretty much the same. Quiet, identical 2-story homes with beige siding, trimmed lawns, and freshly paved driveways. Cookie-cutter suburbia. Porch lights were already flicking on as the sun began its final descent, casting long purple shadows across the immaculate sidewalks. Number 1428 Hawthorne Drive looked perfectly, unequivocally normal. Beige siding, yes, a well-maintained lawn, and, fitting for the season, a few Halloween decorations, a friendly ghost hanging from a tree, some fake spider webs draped over the bushes, and a cheerful-looking pumpkin sitting right by the steps. Nothing out of place, nothing to trigger a single alarm bell in my head. Ms. Riley opened the door almost immediately after my mom's car pulled up. She was early 40s, I'd guess. Dark hair, pulled back into a practical ponytail. She looked a little tired around the eyes, but her smile was kind. Her husband was already dressed up, standing by the open car door, tapping impatiently on his phone. He barely acknowledged me with a nod. They were clearly in a hurry. She introduced me to Evan. He was a quiet little boy with a mop of blonde hair that fell over his eyes. He barely looked up from his tablet, engrossed in whatever game he was playing. Typical kid. Ms. Riley went over the usual stuff. Bedtime at 9:30, snacks in the pantry, TV rules, no scary movies, emergency numbers on the fridge. Everything seemed totally ordinary, exactly like every other babysitting brief I'd ever heard. I felt a sense of relief. See, Mom, perfectly fine. Then, just as they were about to head out the door, Ms. Riley turned back to me. Her smile softened, but her eyes held something I couldn't quite place at the time. a flicker of something, concern, warning. "We should be home around midnight," she said, her voice dropping a little. "But if we're late, don't open the door for anyone. Even if someone knocks, just text me first, okay?" I remember laughing a little. It was just an automatic reaction. I thought she was joking, being overly cautious like parents sometimes are. But she didn't laugh back. Her expression remained serious, unwavering. "I'm serious," she repeated, her voice firm. "Don't open the door." It felt like a really weird comment. Out of place. A little unsettling, yes, but not enough to truly register as a red flag. I just nodded, a little awkwardly. They exchanged a quick goodbye, and then they were gone. The sound of their car pulling away left a sudden, profound silence in the house. The first few hours were exactly what I'd expected. Easy. Evan was shy at first, but sweet. We made a big bowl of popcorn, the extra buttery kind, and settled down on the plush living room couch to watch a Pixar movie. He eventually drifted off to sleep, his blonde head resting against a throw pillow. By about 9:30, just like his mom said he would. I carefully carried him upstairs, his small body surprisingly heavy, and tucked him into his bed. I made sure his little nightlight, shaped like a glowing crescent moon, was on, casting a soft, comforting light across his room. I closed his door almost silently and went back down to the living room, settling onto the couch with my phone. The house was quiet again, bathed in the soft glow of the TV. My night was officially transforming into an easy scroll-through social media session. Around 10:15, that's when it started. The noises. Not loud, not alarming at first. Just the kind of subtle sounds that make you second-guess yourself in an unfamiliar house. A floorboard creaking upstairs when no one was there. The faint drip of a faucet that wasn't dripping a moment ago. Or maybe it was just the house settling. Old pipes, the wind outside. I tried to brush it off, rationalizing each little sound away. Still, I found myself glancing toward the dark hallway every few minutes, my phone screen illuminating my face in the otherwise dim room. An irrational shiver ran down my spine. Then, at 10:30, 3 soft taps at the front door. I froze. My breath hitched in my throat. It wasn't loud, but it was absolutely deliberate, distinct. Not the wind, not the house settling. Someone was out there. My heart started to climb into my throat, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs. Slowly, cautiously, I got up from the couch. My feet felt heavy, glued to the carpet. I crept towards the front door, every sense on high alert. I pressed my eye to the peephole. Nothing. Just the porch, illuminated by its gentle Halloween lights, the fake spiderweb swaying imperceptibly in the still night air, and that cheerful pumpkin. Nobody was there. Of course, I didn't open it. I remembered Miss Riley's strange, serious warning. Don't open the door for anyone. Instead, I pulled out my phone, my fingers fumbling slightly. "Hey, someone just knocked. Should I answer?" I texted Miss Riley. No response. I waited a minute, 2 minutes, staring at the screen, willing it to buzz with an answer. The silence in the house felt oppressive now, broken only by the frantic thumping of my own heart. Another knock, this time a bit louder, more insistent, a little less polite. I texted again, my thumb flying across the keyboard. "Hello? Someone's at the door." Still nothing. The message just sat there, sent, but unread. I started to panic internally. Maybe she didn't have service at the restaurant. Maybe her phone was on silent. Whatever the reason, I was on my own. I decided to ignore it. Whoever it was, they'd leave eventually, right? But a few minutes later, the doorbell rang. A short, sharp burst. Once, then again, then silence. At that point, I was legitimately terrifyingly nervous. My mind raced. Was it a prank? Kids from the neighborhood? But it was almost 11 p.m. on a Friday night. A bit late for trick-or-treaters. I turned off the living room light, plunging the room into near darkness, and edged toward the front window. I carefully, slowly, pulled back a corner of the curtain, just enough to peek through, just enough to see the porch. But there was no one there. Nothing. Just the motion light, a harsh, unwelcome beam, flickering on and off, catching the corner of the plastic pumpkin. A relentless, silent pulse. The porch swing moved slightly in a breeze that wasn't there. I went back to the couch, forcing myself to sit down, trying to scroll through TikTok, desperately trying to distract myself, to pretend it was nothing, to convince myself it was just my imagination. But the sounds didn't stop. They became more frequent, more varied. Every 10 minutes or so, I'd hear something. A light tap on the glass, almost like a fingernail, from the side window. A soft rustle from the side yard, like someone moving through the bushes. The faint crunch of gravel from the driveway. Always just out of sight. Always just out of reach. The house felt like it was breathing around me, slowly, steadily. Around 11:05, my phone buzzed. I practically jumped out of my skin. I snatched it up, my heart pounding. It was Miss Riley. "We're still out. Everything okay?" I exhaled a shaky breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Relief, sharp and potent, flooded through me. I typed back quickly, my fingers still trembling a little. "Yeah, just someone knocked earlier. Didn't open it," she replied almost instantly. Her message flashed across the screen. "Good." Don't, just that one word. Stark, unadorned. Don't. It wasn't reassuring. It was a confirmation. A confirmation that her initial warning hadn't been a joke. A confirmation that there was something to be worried about. The relief I'd felt moments ago evaporated, replaced by a cold knot of dread. I wanted to ask what she meant, to demand an explanation. Who was knocking? Why shouldn't I open the door? But before I could even formulate the question, before my thumbs could even begin to type out a reply, I heard Evan upstairs, his small, bare feet padding softly down the hallway. My blood ran cold. I hadn't heard him get out of bed. I hadn't heard his door open. I called up, my voice a little higher than I intended. "Hey, buddy, you okay?" No response. Just the soft, steady patting of his feet. Then I heard it. A whisper. Faint. Barely audible, but it cut through the silence like a razor. It made my stomach twist, a sickening lurch. It wasn't Evan's voice. It was too low, too rough. It sounded like an adult voice. Too muffled to make out the words. But definitely, undeniably, not a kid. I grabbed my phone, clutching it tight, the screen still glowing with Ms. Riley's chilling one-word text. I moved quietly, stealthily, towards the bottom of the stairs. "Evan?" I whispered again, my voice barely a breath. He appeared at the top of the stairs, a small, sleepy figure, rubbing his eyes with the back of his hand. His blonde hair was disheveled. "Why's there a man talking in the hallway?" he asked sleepily, his voice small and innocent. My heart dropped like a stone to the pit of my stomach. Every ounce of warmth drained from my face. I struggled to keep my voice steady. "Where?" I managed to ask, my gaze sweeping the dark upper hallway. He pointed, a small, trusting finger, toward the guest room. Near the end of the hall, the one Ms. Riley hadn't mentioned. "There," he said. He was whispering through the vent. The air vent. The air conditioning vent. My mind reeled. Someone was in the house, hidden, listening, whispering. I didn't want to scare him, didn't want to confirm his terrifying observation. I just told him, as calmly as I could, to go back to his room and shut the door. He did, thankfully, his little footsteps retreating. I heard the soft click of his door closing. I stood there for a moment, rooted to the spot, listening. The house was silent again, too silent. The absence of sound was now more terrifying than any noise. Then I heard it again. A whisper, long, drawn out, shifting, murmuring, coming from the air vent, the one in the guest room. I inched closer, my entire body rigid with fear, my phone clutched so tightly my knuckles were white. Closer, closer. Still couldn't make out words, just breathing. Ragged, slow breathing, like someone was right there on the other side of the vent, trying to suppress the sound, but failing. Trying to be quiet, but unable to. That was enough for me. That was absolutely, unequivocally enough. My rational brain finally broke. I fumbled through my phone, called Miss Riley. Straight to voicemail. Then her husband. No answer, nothing. I was trapped. So I did what any terrified 17-year-old would do in that situation. I called my mom. She answered on the second ring, her voice warm and familiar, a beacon in the storm. I stammered out what was happening, my voice tight with tears. She told me to lock myself and Evan in his room, to barricade the door if I had to stay put until the parents got home. I scrambled upstairs, grabbing Evan, who was still half asleep and confused. I pushed his heavy dresser against the door as best I could. We sat on his bed, huddled together in the soft glow of the moon nightlight. The door locked. The room plunged into an eerie stillness. Every shadow seemed to stretch and twist into menacing shapes. Minutes felt like hours. Each tick of the clock was an agonizing eternity. My phone buzzed again. I flinched, almost dropping it. It was a text from Miss Riley. "Did you open the door?" I stared at it, my mind racing. No, I thought. No, of course not. What kind of question is that? I typed back, my fingers clumsy with adrenaline. No, what's happening? Who's here? No reply, just the chilling silence from her end. Then, another text came through. Same number, same contact name. Miss Riley. "We're almost home. Let us in." I stared at the screen. My brain couldn't reconcile it. They couldn't both be true. The first text, just minutes ago, had said, "Don't open the door." And now this. "Let us in." My blood ran cold, colder than it had been all night. This was a direct contradiction. A terrifying, impossible contradiction. There were two Miss Rileys, or one of them was lying. And if one was lying, then a knock. 3 firm hits. Downstairs. Shaking the very wood of the house. Boom, boom, boom. Loud enough to make Evan whimper beside me. He buried his face in my side, his small body trembling. And then, another text buzzed in, another one, from the same number. "Why are the lights off?" My hands were shaking so violently I almost dropped the phone. The messages were coming faster now. A barrage. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mind was screaming. I carefully, slowly, crawled to the window of Evan's room, peeking out just enough to see the driveway. There was no car, no Miss Riley, no Mr. Riley, no one outside, just the empty driveway, the dim street lights barely illuminating the quiet suburban street. Then, I saw movement. Near the front door, downstairs, a tall shadow, crossing the porch, moving too fast to make out any details, a blur against the darkness. It was there. Then it was gone. Whoever it was, they had my number. They knew I was inside. They knew I was hiding, and they knew the lights were off. And then the final text came through, the one that still echoes in my nightmares, the one that makes my blood run cold every time I think of it. From Miss Riley. "I told you not to open the door." That's when I heard it. The doorknob downstairs start to turn,